Let's ask our next guest about Damen Martinez. He knows. He saw him up close and personal. Ladies and gentlemen, from Portland, Oregon, it's John Canzano. Of course, JohnCanzano.com. His weekly appearance brought to you by Zeke's Pizza, homegrown in the Northwest, Zeke'sPizza.com. Follow John on social media at John Canzano, BFT, the Bald Faith Truth radio show down there in Portland, Oregon, 7:50 the game. But, of course, JohnCanzano.com. How about Damen Martinez, seventh round?
Yeah, real value there. I mean, a physical runner, a guy that'll work hard, a guy that can handle the workload. I have no doubt that Damen Martinez can be successful at the next level. But it, also kind of a cautionary tale about guys who are transferring. If he stays at Oregon State and he's their bell cow back last season, I think they have a better season with him. I think he has a better statistical season. And I'm not saying, he's a first, second, or third round pick, but I could see Damen Martinez in the 4th or 5th or 6th round. And I think he cost himself some money by going to Miami and making a couple $100,000 more.
Yeah. Well, because all the spotlight was on Cam Ward.
Yep.
That he was the prominent guy there at Miami. Well, I think it's a great landing spot for Martinez. There's a lot of Marshawn Lynch in him. There's a lot of comparables there between those two guys. All right, let's get to the meaty news. You got it. We talked about it last week. It finally comes out today, early this morning, all over it, the story. Fill our audience in. The Pac-2, they've reached a media deal.
Yes, 2025 deal for Oregon State and Washington State is done. It's finalized. The conference rolled it out this morning at 6 a.m. I had it about an hour before that, in print. I actually had it late last night, but everybody was sleeping, so what's the point? But, you've got some surprises in this deal. It was ESPN being part of the deal was interesting. That is that's normal ESPN. It's not ESPNU. It's not ESPN News. It's not ESPN Deportes. This is real ESPN taking 2 Pac-12 games. So longtime partner of the Pac-12 back in the fold, big exposure. Looks to me like ESPN's interested in Friday night and Saturday night games in the Pacific time zone. So keep that thought as we later talk about 2026. CBS being part of the deal, taking the Apple Cup game and then taking that first Oregon State, Washington State home and home game is interesting. That's regular CBS, not CBS Sportsline. That'll also be streamed on Paramount. So you've got broad exposure, 100% of households with CBS. And then the remaining 9 games, as we discussed a couple weeks ago, we knew it. It's the CW. It's a partner that has grown with the Pac-12, familiar with the Pac-12. Interesting to see the CW back in there. And for fans who are upset at that, I would tell you that is way better than being on the Pac-12 network back in the day. You've got 100% exposure. And then a little treat for fans, Puck, that your kickoff times, your home games. You don't have to wait for 6 days or 12 days before. So I think it was a home run from an exposure standpoint. We don't know the money yet. I'm assuming if it's similar to last year, it's like $1 million a game. So the Pac-12 said, Teresa Gold told me in November, they weren't looking for the partner who was paying the most money. They were looking for exposure and they were looking for a real partnership. And I think they get that in this deal.
What do you read into the start times? You got 4 7:00 games for Oregon State and 3 for Washington State. What does that tell you about how these networks view these two and maybe view the conference moving forward?
Well, I think it tells us that there's an appetite for Friday nights and Saturday nights. And we saw it with the Fox games late and the ESPN games late last season. They're doing it with the Big 12. They're doing it with the Big 10. The Pac-12, I think we'd be foolish to think that the Pac-12 in 2026 and beyond is not going to have, a weekly Friday and a weekly Saturday night game. So I think those are here to stay. I do think that, you don't want all your games there. You and I want these games kicking off at 2:00 and 3:00, especially late in the season in Pullman. But I think there was a nice balance there where they got some earlier games to go with those 7 and 7:30s. But I definitely think like ESPN signaling in so many ways, because they not only took the Cal-Oregon State game on Saturday night in the opening weekend, they asked Oregon State to move the Houston game in later in September and move it to a Friday night. And so that was what really caused the delay. You and I had talked about this a week ago. Oh, it's any time now. Well, the delay was being caused because Houston hadn't yet signed the contract to move the game to the Friday night. And so that caused about a week delay. The draft happened in the middle too. Probably didn't probably wasn't attractive for the Pac-12 to release the deals, but just tells me ESPN's going, we like Friday nights, we like Saturday nights, and especially like them in the Pacific time zone.
Yeah, the one gripe that people are going to have is going to be the late night starts, just because of where they're going to travel to. But and again, I don't think anyone loves, if you're going to the game, loves those start times. But again, I said this earlier. I mean, beggars can't be choosers. I mean, you've got to take what you got to get, and that was the one thing that, at least for a college football fan, for me last year, that was missing from the weekend schedule, Saturday night, is you would get done with these games that kicked off at 5, and then there was nothing.
Yeah.
It was over. And you're like, wait, there was too many weekends where I was sitting there at like 8:30 going, where's Arizona Cal? From Tucson. Where is that right now? Where's Washington State and Stanford kicking off? They just didn't exist.
Yeah.
So I think I'm with you. I think this is the future of it. Fans are going to have to get comfortable with it. But there's a time slot where this conference can really maximize their exposure, would be those later start times.
Yeah. And if you're getting ESPN, which, by the way, there's a whole gambling element to being that last game on a Saturday night, right? Everybody's chasing their bets. I don't know why you noticed that there was no game, but I think, everybody's looking at that late night Friday and Saturday, and you watch these other conferences try to steal the after dark branding. Right. I think if you're ESPN or you're CBS or if you're the CW, you got to lean in with full force and go, hey, Pac-12 After Dark is back. And guess what? You can do this not just in 2025. I kind of expect that we're going to see that as part of the 26 deal that's coming, on the heels of this.
I just think it's a really, really big deal for these two schools for two games in particular. One is the Oregon State-Washington State game. That is a hell of a TV window. 4:30 on CBS. That is prime time. And I don't know what they're going to be going up against on November 1st. I mean, I guess I could probably look at what the schedule is right now and guess. But that is a network that is in everyone's home, that everyone in the country is going to be able to see those two schools in prime time go at each other. And then the Apple Cup, the fact that CBS is, again, prime time, 4:30 or 5. Again, that is the best window you could possibly have that serves the entire country, and the Apple Cup gets that window. I mean, that's monstrous.
And from Washington State's standpoint, like, I heard a little disappointment. Oh, the ESPN games are on Oregon State, and when Washington State got the CW outside of the CBS games. But CW gives you 100% exposure to the country. Anybody can watch, anyone can tune in. Same as CBS, 100%. Availability across the country. And that's valuable when you're trying to not disappear. And that's the mission in 2025 for Oregon State and Washington State. It's stay relevant, stay visible, let people know you're still out there. And I think they accomplished that in this deal. And then 26 becomes about, 5 years of trying to build brand, trying to get to the playoff, trying to position yourself for whatever comes next. I think Teresa Gold should be taking a victory lap right now. I think she got it right.
Tell our audience the quote from Bob Thompson along those lines. Does this look like it's the setup for what the media deal will look like beyond 25?
Yeah, Bob Thompson, for people who don't know, he's a retired Fox Sports Network's president. He's done these deals. This is the world he lives in. So I reached out to him late last night. He's watching an NHL hockey game, and I said, hey, deal's coming down the pipeline. Here it is. And his first takeaway was like, wow, look, they got the exposure that they needed. His second takeaway was the partners in 2025 will likely have in their contracts an option or some kind of right of refusal in 2026. So I do expect ESPN, CBS, and the CW to be in the room as they negotiate the 26 deal and what they have an appetite for. My own thinking is that the CW isn't a quote unquote primary partner moving forward in 26, that they may just take 9 games in 26 and they may say, hey, there's more room for ESPN to come in and grab a Friday night and grab a Saturday night every week during the season and just do Pac-12 After Dark on ESPN. There could be room for TNT or Turner to come in. They lost the NBA. They're certainly going to be interested in basketball. They've shown an interest in football. I think there's a potential for them to come in, and then for CBS to also be involved as well. I think you're going to have multiple partners in the room. I've been hearing from a lot of fans in Boise and fans in San Diego who are excited because they're looking over going, hey, ESPN is part of this deal. And look at the CW. We can get that channel, and look at CBS. And it's better than what they had, Puck, in the Mountain West, where they were doing Fox, ending up on FS1 a lot, and they were doing CBS Sports Network, which it's not CBS. It's not big CBS. So I think the New World Pac-12 schools are all kind of intrigued at where it's going, and I won't be surprised to see these media partners back in the room in the bigger deal.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would prefer. I would prefer what they have here for 25 to be what the deal is moving forward, where you've got, whether it's majority of the games are on CW, fine, but there is a mix of exposure on ESPN and exposure on CBS. I know people have their feelings about ESPN. I get it. What it's turned into from what it used to be to what it is now, I understand it. But it is exposure to something that the majority of this country does watch. And you want to be mentioned on game day. Despite what game day is, turned into, you do want them like, all right, well, coming up today here on the Pac-12 is, yada, 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 which, they just were an afterthought a year ago.
Yeah. And in the shoulder programming that it gives you that glow of ESPN is such a value, because you know what ESPN does? They're going to promote, hey, our Friday night, hey, our Saturday night, it's Pac-12 After Dark. Here comes Oregon State Cal. Here comes Oregon State Houston. They will shovel that coal. It won't be Caitlin Clark and Linsanity, but it'll have the undertones of, hey, our games are the best, and we've got these games coming up. And you got to face it, Oregon and Washington, UCLA, USC. You could go into Salt Lake and BYU and Arizona State, but beyond that, the Pac-12 really could own college football on Friday nights and Saturday nights in the Pacific time zone at 7:00. It can just be a window where you thrive.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Agree with you. They really should just kind of lean into that. No doubt about it. All right, what does this mean now for expansion?
Yeah.
How much closer are we getting to expansion and finally adding? Because they still need to add one more team to get to the full 8. So, are we any closer?
Yeah, I think they are, and I think they're moving along. Now, I'm not expecting like the 26 deal and expansion to be imminently announced, because I think there's a few factors in play in the background. One of them is we've learned in the last week how long it takes to iron out, like moving a game from a Saturday to a Friday. It took like 7-8 days to get that contract signed. So you can see how slowly things move in the world of academia. But the other thing is, you've got mediation with the Pac-12 and the Mountain West. That stay from the Northern District Court expires in mid-May. I do think that there is some tie to that mediation discussion that is going to impact expansion, because if UNLV is in play for the Pac-12 and that's the school you're going to take, it may take here several weeks to get that ironed out with the Mountain West. Also, you've got, multiple partners involved. So I'm just being told not to hold my breath. Like, this isn't coming in a week or two, but they're moving towards that expansion piece. I think they know who they want, Puck. I think it's only going to be one school. Based on the feedback they got from their media partners, everybody kind of being interchangeable. You don't dilute your conference for interchangeable options. You don't take on multiple options. So I really am looking at UNLV. I'm looking at Memphis, and I'm looking at Texas State. I'm going, which of these three becomes the most attractive in the next month or so, because that may decide who the Pac-12 adds. And then beyond that, you tell me, Puck, Washington State and Oregon State are playing this home and home. And if you only add one member via the expansion, you might have to entertain the idea of everybody's playing a home and home against their rival.
I like it.
If you like it, it gives you more inventory to sell to media partners, because you're not going on the road to play non-conference games. You're adding another conference game, gives you more to sell. It's not unprecedented. People are, saying, oh, this has never happened. Liberty did it with New Mexico State. A few years ago, UConn did it in 1998. It always seems to be tied to expansion and problems getting games. But, if you're the Pac-12 and CBS and the CW say, hey, we like these games, we'll take them. Now you can do it with, rivals. You can say, all right, who's Boise State's rival every year? Who's Colorado State's rival? Who's San Diego State's rival? You'll play a home and home. That could be on the table. Also, I've also heard whispers about the possibility of maybe a crossover scheduling alliance between two of the non-Power 4 conferences, like the American and the Pac-12. Tim Pernetti in the American and Teresa Golden in the Pac-12. Who's got the better conference? Can we settle this on the field? Because there's an automatic berth at stake for one of these conference champions. And if you're the Pac-12 and you feel like you're the better conference, let's strap it up and get on the field and prove it.
Well, it's kind of an NFL model, so it's and really college athletics and college football is going that way anyways. Speaking of the NFL draft wrapped up. I mean, it was one of the most embarrassing, I think, displays of broadcasting I think a lot of people have seen. And there's so much to unpack with how the whole Sanders thing unfolded. And of course, it's familiar here because they were in the Pac-12 in the last few years. And, no one looked good in this. No one. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around what angered Mel Kiper so much. Now, I didn't watch the ESPN. I watched the NFL Network. And they didn't really, they talked about it, but it wasn't like it didn't dominate their coverage. Daniel Jeremiah was perplexed why he wasn't drafted, but wasn't crying about it. Mel Kiper, almost had an aneurysm about it. What did this tell us about maybe us or the media about how everyone focused and followed this story and covered it?
It's a great topic because there's so many tentacles to it. You can unwrap it. Let's start with ESPN and the media echo chamber that happens in the run-up to the draft. ESPN shovels coal. They're in the ratings and the entertainment business. They are not in the news and ethics business. They are pushing Linsanity. They are pushing Caitlin Clark. They are pushing Tebow Mania. They are pushing the Colorado narrative because it brings eyeballs to their shoulder programming and to their broadcasts where they're carrying these partners in these games. It is all about hysteria and getting people there. And so part of the Colorado story was built on, the hype of Colorado, and ESPN's the biggest hype man in the business. And so you've got ESPN with a vested interest in Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter being at the top of the draft and Travis Hunter winning the Heisman Trophy and Coach Prime, what did he say this week? And so it becomes this ongoing narrative. Now, that echo chamber is real. You get, especially in the run up to the draft, you get everybody eyeballing and rubbernecking on each other's mock drafts. Everybody's kind of building consensus. But in the background of that, the actual GMs of the NFL held the most important vote. And they looked over at Shedeur Sanders and they said, hey, he's got talent. We like his arm. He holds the ball too long. But, we could work with him. But also, wow, what a distraction that comes with drafting him. Not only just sort of the reality television and the entitlement and the circus of the Colorado story, but he's also got his dad off to the side as a potential NFL coach someday. If you draft Shedeur, are you walking into a situation where you're going to have Prime calling for him to start, 4 weeks into the season? And then will there be cries like, fire the coach and hire Shedeur's dad to coach the team? Like, you're walking into a lot there. And the part of it that people kept asking me, why aren't they picking Shedeur? He was good enough to be a second, third, or fourth round pick. He absolutely was. All right. But they weren't picking him because the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. And they were going, he's not good enough for us to take on the distraction and the entitlement and all the noise that comes with drafting him until he got to pick 144. And Cleveland did something no NFL team has ever done and said, we're going to pick back-to-back quarterbacks in a draft because we're just guessing. And he's a value now at 144. So, it was really kind of interesting to watch that all unfold. Mel Kiper and his outrage, it's totally rooted in he doesn't like being wrong. And he was hearing the noise on social media about how wrong he was. And the tantrum that he threw, I thought it was unprofessional. That was embarrassing. But it's like, look, just admit you got it wrong. I think he also did not believe that Lamar Jackson was a first-round pick back in the day.
Well, but he's gotten plenty of. What the most embarrassing part was, ranting and raving about how people in the NFL don't understand how to evaluate quarterbacks. This is the same guy that said, "Listen, I will retire from this if Jimmy Clausen isn't a superior pro in like a few years. Jimmy Clausen was one of the biggest busts in the NFL draft. And so, I mean, guys get stuff wrong all the time. I mean, that's the problem with people in today's society. They just can't admit when they're wrong. I mean, we are in the opinion business. You give an opinion, you're wrong. You know, we used to joke about this on the radio all the time. I mean, God, there's so many radio hosts that are just so fixated on in our business about being right. And there's no goddamn game show at the end of our award show. That's what our joke was. There's no award show at the end that goes, hey, John, you got this right.
Yeah.
Or, you know, Jason, you got this right and you got this wrong. And no one's keeping score.
Yeah.
Other than yourself.
He so badly wanted to be right about Shedeur. But part of the problem is, like, you're not an NFL GM. And I got news for you. The NFL is a meritocracy. The NFL GMs will draft a player with a character issue. They'll draft a player with a domestic violence issue. If you can play, they'll say he's a sensational guy. He's a good guy. You got to get to know him. And so the issue with Shedeur wasn't like he had, a criminal issue. It was more of the hassle and the distraction and the entitlement. He's not good enough for you to take him in spite of that. So, now he gets an opportunity to go prove everybody wrong, which is amazing. And by the way, so much of your success as a quarterback in that league is about the fit and the thing. And Cleveland has been such a dead end for quarterbacks. Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. I almost think, Puck, that the guy who it ends up better for is the one who loses that battle and gets released and picked up by somebody else. Like, it's just not a great situation. So I don't know if we're ever going to really get an answer as to, hey, who was the better pick?
You think that the owner, it seems like, and it's been talked about, the owner stepped in.
Yeah.
Why do you think the owner stepped in to do it?
100%. Jimmy Haslam and Dee Haslam, great. They made their money in the petroleum business. Frankly, Jimmy's father bought that first gas station, and then Jimmy's kind of just inherited it. All right. It's one of the things that's wrong with ownership in the professional sports leagues is you got people who have made money who think they have all the answers. The Haslam family, this was a family that made a $230 million bet on Deshaun Watson. Okay. He's still on the roster, Puck. Yeah. They can't release him because of the cap hit that they're going to take. And so he's still kind of lurking in the background with the Achilles issue. And, they're paying him $46 million guaranteed this year. So you could tell from the reaction of the general manager and the coaches when they make the pick at 144, there are scouts in that room. There are coaches in that room who probably all wanted a good player that they know will help them right away. This is not a good football team. It's a 3-win team. And instead, they're picking back-to-back QBs because the Haslam family, once again, has dialed up the phone and said, hey, he's a real value here. I'd love to have him. We bring a lot of interest to our organization. We might sell some tickets. But now you've got a circus going into training camp. And it's Dylan Gabriel, who probably interviewed better than anybody of the quarterbacks going into the draft. And you got Shedeur, who, his phone's ringing. He's on a Zoom call. He's going to pick up that call. I mean, I've interviewed him one-on-one. He doesn't come off well in a one-on-one interview. He comes off entitled. He's distracted. He's unnecessarily combative at times. I like his game, but I don't like him as a first round or a second round pick for sure.
Well, he's got a chance. I agree with you on all those fronts. He got a chance to turn around, though. I mean, he does. I mean, he's got an opportunity where he doesn't have to go in right away. And if he puts his head down and just works and just, I mean, still has a chance to become a pro, but it's just, the collusion, the blackballing. It was just embarrassing to watch people lose. This league doesn't do that for a guy that's a draft pick. They would never do that because it doesn't matter. It's wins and losses. I mean, my God, they Jalen Carter slid in the draft. This is the guy who got a car accident and left the girl for dead and walked away. And they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, but he's good at pressuring the quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't care.
These GMs are not going to – this had nothing to do with race. This had nothing to do with collusion. Yeah. This was simply the GM saying he's not good enough to justify picking him with all the distraction that comes with it. Sure. And then at some point he becomes a value. And at 144, Cleveland was like, we got to have him. We got to move up and get him.
All right. Just like you are a value.
Thank you.
That's what you are. You are a value. What do we got? What's coming down the pipeline at johncanzano.com?
Well, it's all about what's next. I'm always trying to look forward, but what's next in 2026 and beyond with the Pac-12? Where are they at? Is it really down to one school in expansion? If so, who is it? Is how deep is that list? But I think it's really interesting. I think all this stuff is fascinating. I dove into the Shedeur Sanders thing on Sunday because, I felt like I had something to say because I had interviewed the guy one-on-one and I had kind of a bad experience interviewing him. And, I love his game. I love his toughness, his moxie, but I wouldn't have picked him either.
Yeah, he can be off-putting for sure. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. We'll talk next week.
Thanks, man.